you see that there's sort of fluid differences. So it doesn't mean that you necessarily fail if you scale prematurely. You might still succeed, but your chances of success are just much lower. So what we can see is that here, always the blue bars are the companies that are scaling maturely, and then the red bars are companies that scale prematurely. Now what you see is that companies that scale prematurely never cross $1 million in revenue per month. And there's sort of a natural border where prematurely scaling companies don't seem to really go beyond this revenue. Now, something similar we see here with the results in user growth. You can see that companies that scale prematurely grow much faster than companies that scale properly in the early days, but then break later on. And this, by the way, is a logarithmic graph, so the differences, especially towards the end, are magnitudes. You also see this with valuation, so you see companies that scale prematurely and that are extremely certain of themselves. In the early days, over-evaluate them significantly, but then once the company is going up, their valuations break in because most of the time their model does not hold what they thought it would. And the companies scale properly and start scaling significantly here. Now, same thing on the funding side. You can see this company scale prematurely and tend to raise a lot more money early on. They're very certain, they think they know what they do, and they can convince investors, of course, who understand all of this even less than most entrepreneurs. But then, of course, later on, once they start scaling, the amount of funding just breaks off because they're not that much able to deliver with that. Now, just summing those few slides up and the ones before, the key reason for failure of startups is an extreme uncertainty. And this uncertainty essentially means that the company doesn't know what to execute and what to do. But instead of trying to find it out and to go through a search process, many companies execute rather than searching. And they tend to be very efficient in executing, but unfortunately they're executing the wrong things. And therefore, the chance of them failing are very much higher than of companies that go properly through a search process. And with the Startup Compass that we built, we hope that we can help you on this journey of assessing your actual market validation and being able to benchmark your KPIs with other companies that are similar to you. Now, if you are a company yourself, you're running a startup right now, I guess many of you are, how can you identify premature scaling for yourself? Again, different red companies scale prematurely. The blue ones are the companies that scale properly. Now, what you can see is that companies that scale prematurely tend to have a lot more paid users even before they hit their market for a certain customer segment, which means that they tend to try to how do you say this? Just charge earlier, create earlier revenue, and as a result, many companies that do this don't focus on the actual most important piece of a highly scalable company, which is your value proposition, a unique scalable value proposition, but instead they focus on trying to make money, which many times leads you to become a profitable company, but one that is very small and one that does not grow to the size that many of you would like it to grow. Another difference you can see is that companies scale prematurely also tend to outsource their team, or outsource a lot of it early on, which is also has a big influence on finding the actual value position, because as many of you know who have built products, there's this continuous feedback cycle that you go through as you build your product in the beginning, and you need to be able to very quickly implement this feedback. If you need to first create a project plan and then send it to someone and they don't understand, you have to explain it to them. If you go through this whole process, the time that you need in order to implement learning and test them is much, much longer. And therefore, companies that outsource the team are much more likely to scale prematurely because they have too much friction in order to go through this learning process. So typical sign for companies to scale prematurely is that they tend to focus on product development very early on rather than customer development. Now, customer development means that you go and talk to your customers instead of building the product. So you go and interview them, you try to learn more reasons why they would use a certain product, how much they would pay for it, how valuable it is, how often they would use it, and so on. Instead, many companies spend time trying to build something, and they think, once we build it, it will surely work, or it's going to be, even if it doesn't work, we will then know. But then you spend 6 months working on something that after 6 months you learn that it doesn't work. Whereas if you talk to your customers, you might find out after days of interviewing that something that you had in mind in the beginning doesn't actually work. Another sort of nice picture of what I just said, you can you see the companies that scale prematurely and the lines of code that they write compared to companies that scale properly. You can see that companies that scale prematurely tend to write a lot more code, especially early on, where they just simply over-engineer the product and they add another feature and another feature and another feature, instead of just focusing on the core of what the product is supposed to be about, and to see whether people want it or not. Again, another difference is that companies that scale prematurely tend to over-evaluate themselves as the self-reported evaluation of companies. They have not actual money, but we've asked them how much they think that they're worth, and we can see that the think that they're worth much more. Okay. Another difference, companies that scale prematurely to spend a lot more money on customer acquisition even early on, which is another sign for a higher certainty in them thinking that they found the holy grail in whatever their customer product is, and they start spending lots of money to acquire the right customers. Unfortunately, many of them will then later on find out that they were wrong because they have not spent enough time on actually validating that that's true. That's it. I think we're out of time now, but we have a little bit of time for questions. You can check out the Genome Campus at campus.co. You can also email if you have questions. I'm always happy to answer them. Also, would love to have feedback if you guys have any use the product and you have any problems, or you don't understand something, just send an email and I'll answer it. All right. Thanks.
¿Tenemos alguna pregunta para Bjoern?
Hi, can we see the slide 2 slides ago? We couldn't see it very well.
Which one?
I can't hear anything. I heard that someone was talking, but can you put it into the chat for now, please?
La bola. ¿Quién te quiere? Gracias, Yankee. Ay, no, bueno, güey, si fueras de jata, un beso.
¿Tenemos alguna otra pregunta?
The previous two slides. You mean, let's see. You mean this and this one?
So we're seeing your face. Si quieres, le preguntamos algo, compa.
Me gustaría meterme a su plataforma y poder
Está chida.
Damn it. I didn't put on the screen share.
Está muy lleno de variables. Todo se mueve, todo. Pero está chido. Al final te da como un reportito que es como un...
Alright, here we go.
Y te puedes estar metiendo en el tiempo.
Is that the one that you were interested in, the valuation and the customer position?
Güey, neta, managing through numbers es otro tema.
Okay. Why did he close super cool school? Yo tengo una pregunta.
Okay.
Ay, yo. Pero la va a escribir, ¿no?
Hey.
I've got a question.
This one?
What happened with Super Cool School, his startup? It was really cool. Super cool.
Is that the slide that you guys wanted to see?
Yes. Va a salir con cada OB le quito las...
I can also, let's do it like this. I can send Karina the slides and you can like, go through them. I'd prefer if we can do like a quick Q&A because I have to leave very soon. I'm going to stop screen sharing. What happened to Super Cool School? Super Cool School, for everyone who doesn't know it, is my previous startup. It's an education startup where we build education infrastructures within larger companies, and we also build a open platform for people to create their own school online. And this open platform is open source now, so if anyone of you is interested in building an online school, you can find it on GitHub or on Google Code. It's just search for Super Cool School. We decided not to continue it about 1.5 years ago.
Ese es Super Cool. Así como, ¿te acuerdas del curso güey?
So the startup campus is currently, we have more than 35,000 signups globally. Out of those, 50% are in the US and 50% is global. There's a lot of companies from Mexico. There's, I guess, one thing that a lot of people always ask is, well, are there sort of differences between different ecosystems and how you look at companies in different ecosystems? And there are some differences, and we try to incorporate them when we do the assessment of companies. However, the differences are not as big as you'd imagine. So you're not that different from a startup in the US. My opinion on the ecosystem in Mexico and Latin America. First of all, we are actually working on a report that is comparing ecosystems and diving a little bit deeper into how ecosystems are different, what are advantages, disadvantages of different ecosystems, and so on. We are probably going to publish that within the next 2 or 3 months. My personal opinion is that I think that those ecosystems are thriving. I know a few people from there personally, and I can see that within our ecosystem, there's a strong growth within those ecosystems. we can see that also the performance of companies is pretty good, especially of the new ones. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time also for Mexico and Latin America.
¿Tenemos alguna otra pregunta?
No.
Bueno, le agradecemos a Bjoern Hermann por su presentación del Startup Genome Project y la herramienta del Startup Compass. A continuación, abriremos el foro de casos de éxito. Para este foro vamos a tener personas a los costados del auditorio que nos van a estar ayudando, recolectando sus preguntas por escrito para pasarlas aquí al frente al foro e ir dando una secuencia a cómo vamos sacando esas preguntas con las personas que nos van a acompañar en este foro. Y en primer lugar quiero presentar a nuestros panelistas que nos van a acompañar. La primera de ellas, Prospera, es una organización que capacita a pequeños emprendedores y los vincula con ciudadanos responsables. Quiero que le demos la bienvenida a Macarena Hernández de Prospera.
Ella vive en Nueva York, en Washington. Órale, güey, pero unas bucas, ¿no?
Unos huevos. Trompotas de falopio.
Sí.
Ondore desarrolla sistemas de análisis de información y diseña estrategias de comunicación en Internet. De Ondore recibamos a Fernando Luege.
Es el de las entrevistas por video. Qué pinche buena idea, cabrón.
Sí, se mama.
Pero les quise comprar y no se dejaron.
¿Por?
Nunca me contestaron. No hay ninguna cotización porque les entrevistar cerca de contratar a cerca de 5 desarrolladores.
Rodrigo Martínez ya se
Yo sé que
encuentra
tengo que
aquí.
a las 50. Pues me hace clic.
No, tampoco.
Yo te la mando.
Wowzer, antes obvia, brinda un servicio de software para el video reclutamiento online. Recibamos a Rodrigo Martínez de Wowzer. Incu desarrolla soluciones de software basadas en web y dispositivos móviles. Recibamos a Alberto Padilla de Incu.
Monterrey, ¿no?
Pero este güey se mamó, cabrón.
¿Por qué?
O sea, cuando empezaron, yo, que la chingada, güey, es que quiero mientras...
Bueno, le damos unos minutos. Están en un evento en otra parte de este mismo evento que está desarrollando de forma paralela Fernando Luege y Flavio Rom. Flavio Rom viene de Dine Deal, que es una empresa que ya fue adquirida por otra en una exitosa venta y fue una empresa de marketing online a través de ofertas diarias.
Yo hago el producto, pero necesitamos un cofundador que sea de negocios. Y se agarró dos güeyes que llegaron los profesiones, se asociaron y ellos nomás se dedican a vender y el marketing chingada y ellos se dedican a estar en el producto y hacerlo mejor. No mames, qué buena más fueron porque pum, ¿saben qué hacer? Súper enfocados. Muy bueno.
Y bueno, en lo que se incorporan con nosotros, el resto de los panelistas, vayamos comenzando y me gustaría abrir con algo que nos exponen, que la mayoría de los emprendedores toman este camino por las razones equivocadas, o uno se inicia como emprendedor por razones equivocadas. Algunas de ellas ya las escuchamos incluso el día de hoy, el buscar dinero, el buscar una situación de poder, o buscar una situación en donde uno tenga fama, el aburrimiento de estar en un trabajo que no le resulta una persona satisfecha.